Yo, what is up guys, and welcome back to McAD's Entertainment. I'm your host as always, Adam McGahee. Well guys, it's officially July 2025, and you know what that means? We have two huge superhero movies that are coming out this year. Seems like we've been waiting forever, but they're finally here. For anyone who's remotely a nerd, you would know that these two movies are James Gunn's Superman and Fantastic Four: First Steps. In celebration of these two blockbusters, I've put together one giant video that's encompassing the 1999 comic where Superman actually met the Fantastic Four. This was one of my favorite comics as a kid. Long story short, my parents found this comic for me at a thrift store. I remember it was huge. It was like this big. It was like half my size. Anyway, it was colossal. And I loved bringing this thing everywhere with me. I would bring it to school. I would read it all the time. I'd read it to the point where it completely fell apart. I don't have the physical copy of it. I think there's like half of it in my parents' attic. I wish I still had a copy of it, but it's insanely expensive. But anyways, yes, you heard that right. Back in 1999, these two superhero groups actually did have a giant crossover, which I'll be covering for you guys today. It's one of my favorite comic book stories, and I hope you guys enjoy it. But before we hop into that, I wanted to let you guys know that our superhero training program is live. If you're looking to get in superhero shape, follow me on Instagram at McAD's Fitness and DM the word super, and I'll send you our free 2-week superhero training plan. With that out of the way though, let's get on with what you came here for, and that is the full story of Superman: Fantastic Four. The story opens in the distant past, as we overlook the ruins of the iconic planet Krypton, moments before its infamous destruction. Similar to most Superman origin stories, we'd see a lone spacecraft containing the baby Kal-El escape his homeworld just as it exploded. However, unlike most Superman stories, we would see just who is responsible for Krypton's death on this world, and that would be the all-powerful planet eater himself, the mighty Galactus. The Titan would notice the escaping craft, but instead of immediately destroying it, he could sense the power of the young Kryptonian within, perhaps a herald for him sometime in the future. Making a tracking craft of his own, Galactus would then infuse it with the power cosmic, where he'd send it to follow the baby Superman ship. The pod would then travel throughout space and time, where it would eventually reach the present-day DC universe. Operating on its own, the ship would then open, revealing what appeared to be a single shard of kryptonite. As the piece would plummet down to the Earth, we'd see these events were being observed by a mysterious individual standing atop a LexCorp satellite. Following the emerald crystal, this being would then fly towards it, where they would soon come into contact. Forwarding to the planet's surface, we'd see a team of puzzled and rather horrified bystanders looking on at a bizarre device that had shown up in the streets of Metropolis. Emergency crews would examine the structure and deduce that it was some kind of bomb. With officials urging the public to get back, the citizens would soon breathe easier, as they'd witness the mighty Superman arrive to the scene. God, look at the dude's quads. This Superman may have just invented leg day, boys. Supes revealed that this thing was a full-on nuke, where the crews justifiably began to panic. The Man of Steel quickly put their worries to rest by using his heat vision to melt the detonator. They would not be in the clear just yet though, as Superman would hear a click, notifying the crews that the terrorist who planted the bomb had a backup device which they were preparing to use. Rocketing to a nearby rooftop, Superman located the terrorist, who cursed the man along with all of America, questioning just why the nuke didn't go off. The hero would tell the attackers they were cowards and would go in to apprehend them, where suddenly he would pause and be met with an instant surge of pain. This would not be from the terrorist energy weapons, rather it was a wave of mental agony caused by the mysterious shard of green kryptonite from earlier, which had now arrived to the planet. Before the hero could even process what he was looking at, The mystery would deepen even further, where Kal-El was met by the specter of his father Jor-El, who came at his son with a message containing the details of their home planet Krypton's destruction. Jor-El would then inform his son that he had always believed the planet's demise was due to natural occurrences. However, he had recently learned of a being who had accelerated this process, this being the mighty Galactus. Such a name caused even Superman to shudder, as he had heard whispers of him from the heroes of the Marvel Universe and never would have imagined he would have made his way to his world. Taking the shard, Superman said he would need help from some old friends who would be able to help track the monster down. Friends who just so happened to be experts in this field. We are then taken to a pier off the New York highway where we spot a building with a very familiar logo. This would be the current headquarters of the Fantastic Four, where we'd see a young Franklin Richards playing with a mix of Marvel and DC action figures, all while watching his world's version of Superman, the animated series. Man, no wonder he grows up to be legit one of the most powerful beings ever. He was raised watching absolute peak. After his cartoons, Franklin went to tell his Uncle Ben that he missed a great episode, where we see this was indeed Ben Grimm, whom we all know as the Thing, who was a little busy at the moment helping Reed with experiments as he was trapped holding up a giant 2-ton device, all while in the squat position. Bro is trying really hard to compete with Superman in a best quads competition. Here we see that Reed was having both Ben and Johnny Storm participate in a series of tests to discern the power levels between the two, which the men agreed was rather boring. Sue would then take the young Franklin for a snack, who was still in amazement at the Man of Steel's cartoon show, and asked his mother if Superman was truly real, where she confirmed this was very much so. Thinking this was the coolest thing ever, despite his parents also being superheroes, the elated Franklin would barrage his mother with a series of questions about all what Supes could do, where a concerned Sue would then cut him off as she noticed that their building's defenses had suddenly been turned off. Wondering just who or what this could be, Mrs. Fantastic then projected a force field around her and her boy, only to be rather shocked at who this intruder was, and that being none other than the Man of Steel in the flesh himself. In complete disbelief, Sue and Franklin brought Superman to Reed and the rest, who were all equally as shell-shocked, to be greeted by his presence. I mean, yeah, just imagine you're at home chilling and Henry Cavill just randomly shows up wanting to hang out. I'd be completely bromance too. Clark would then tell Reed he needed to speak to him about Galactus, as he had been to the DC universe, a possibility Reed had never pondered. Studying the shard, Reed would notice it began to glow and would ask if this was normal. Suddenly the object would crackle with a wave of emerald energy, which would then blast directly into the Fantastic Four's computer system. Within seconds, all of the electronics within the Four's compound would begin to go haywire, with the Thing nearly being crushed by the enormous weight he was holding. Mr. Fantastic would then race to his monitor to analyze the situation, where a sinister laugh would echo through the building, a voice that Superman immediately recognized. This cyber attack would get even worse, as now the Four's defense system had turned on them, opening fire and nearly killing Franklin if it weren't for the quick-acting Superman who rushed in at the last second. The boy would watch on in amazement, noting that these beams were powerful enough to cut through adamantium, yet this powerful force of nature shrugged them off like they were mere toys. As more of the building's defense systems would attack the heroes, we'd see the space pod from earlier in this story arrive to the scene, where with a sudden flash of energy would zap Superman, causing him to instantly vanish inside of it. Wondering just what the heck happened, Reed quickly deduced that by the pod's design, it was created by none other than Galactus himself. Still curious as to how the god instigated turning their own defenses against them, we then see a mysterious third-party member reveal themselves as the mastermind behind this. We then begin to see pieces of metal and technology suddenly whiz to life seemingly by themselves, where they begin to construct a humanoid cyborg form. This wasn't just any cyborg though. This would be the work of Superman's original villainous replacement when he died, Dr. Hank Henshaw, the Cyborg Superman. Thing would then quickly remark on how hideous this Terminator knockoff was, where the guy then showed off some serious upgrades to his power, where he was able to shapeshift into the Human Torch, where he quickly fried the Rockman before him. As the other heroes would combat their attacker, we'd see the real Human Torch using his powers to try to pry open the pod that abducted Superman, where he then sees a hand tear through its hull. This indeed was Superman, but he was different. Something was changing him. This something being Galactus, who was molding the Man of Steel into his image. We then see that Cyborg Superman was simping for the Big G and wanted to be infused with the power for himself, where he then raced toward the pod, where he was then blocked by a barrier from Sue. This gave the mighty Galactus just enough time to completely infuse Superman with the power cosmic, turning him into a fully gold-plated, all-powerful servant primed to prepare the multiverse for his master's cuisine. This form of him looks so cool. I need your boy Todd McFarlane to whip up a figure of this ASAP. Come on, Todd! Reed would attempt to restrain 24-karat Kal-El, but he would be completely powerless, as the man would then teleport them to parts unknown, saying that his master had need of him. Now confined within one of Susan's fields, we would see the Cyborg Superman was rather dejected and would wonder why Galactus chose Clark over him, where the Thing, now fully recovered, was ready to get his paws on the slippery Metal Man as payback. However, it wasn't clobbering time just yet, as Sue interrogated the cyborg, where we see he had pivotal information on just what was going on. Henshaw was the one in pursuit of Galactus after all, and could track the crystal that he created. He knew exactly where Superman and Reed were. Forming a rather unholy, but let's admit, awesome alliance, the Fantastic Four joined with the cyborg so they could track down and hopefully cure their brainwashed powerful friend. Things would then be taken to the displaced Mr. Fantastic and Superman, who were in what appeared to be some sort of futuristic city, which is actually revealed to be Galactus's colossal spacecraft. Richards would try and talk some sense into his newly naked gold friend, who would not listen to reason, for the only reason he understood was now the will of his master. Just then we would see the World Eater reveal himself, where he'd be delighted at the sight of his new herald, claiming he would be his most powerful one yet. In one last desperate plea, Reed would beg for the Kryptonian to think of his loved ones, where he'd mention Lois Lane. This would make the hero hesitate, but only briefly, where Galactus would then finalize his transformation, fully bringing him to his side. We are then taken back to the remaining four members, where we'd see their spaceship had been modified by Henshaw, which now granted them the warp drive abilities to take them to Galactus. While of course the team did not trust the cyborg, the villain was too giddy to work with them, and said it was rather ironic to be alongside these heroes, for he and his family had quite the similar origin. They too were all scientists exploring the reaches of space, where their shuttle was also bombarded with cosmic radiation. While initially blessed with powers like the Fantastic Four, Henshaw's family soon died horrifically from radiation poisoning. While his physical body may have died, Henshaw's mind survived and inherited the ability to merge with machinery, where he then absorbed the DNA and technology from Superman's escape pod when he was a baby, giving him the powers of Kal-El and master over technology, where instead of using them to save mankind, he'd use them to conquer it. So he was basically just another Reed Richards, because that man goes evil like every other Tuesday. Get his order wrong at Starbucks, and he's turning into a multiversal megalomaniac. We are then taken to Superman rocketing through the cosmos, where he soon finds a planet for his master to consume. Galactus would arrive and prepare his meal, where he then noticed something. While this planet was certainly full of the nutrients he needed, it was also devoid of life. He would then turn to his herald and ask if he chose this planet for that exact reason, where Superman would tell him that he merely selected it as it was close to the Titan's location and had everything he needed to be satiated. However, before Galactus could prepare his galactic bottle of adobo to season this fresh new world for consumption, Superman warned him that he sensed a disturbance. Someone else was here. This someone would be the Fantastic Three, including Hank Henshaw, who were here to save their friends. The heroes would battle Galactus and the cosmic-powered Superman, where they'd quickly be outmatched, where we'd see the likes of Thing get quickly fried yet again by Galactus' I-beams. Man, this is just not Ben's day. Poor guy. As the heroes would duke it out, we'd see poor Reed had to sit this one out, as Galactus had trapped him inside of an unbreakable cube that was completely sealed off, and no matter what he did, there was not a single opening in it for him to use his powers to escape. Try as they may, the four were no match for Superman, let alone a cosmic one, where he made quick work of them. Seeing that any further fighting would be a literal death wish, the cyborg suggested that they retreat, where as much as Sue hated to agree that the Psycho was right, obliged, where they escaped just in time to witness the planet's destruction. Another 5-course meal for the mighty Galactus. However, it was in watching this planet's death that we see a look of devastation come over Superman's face. Just the mere thought of him being used like this to destroy life shook him to his core. Perhaps this was his humanity breaking through, despite the powerful God's hold over him. We then see the man go to confront his master about this carnage. However, Galactus' will once again overpowered his, where he then sent him off in search of yet another world to consume. And find a world he did, except unlike the other, this one was teeming with life. We'd see Clark's humanity emerge once more, where he would question his master about the morality of this. These were still people. Must they die? Despite being an ancient cosmic entity, even someone like Galactus must have a soul. The giant could only silence his servant by telling him that Galactus does what he must, as survival was his first and only priority. While this was going on, we'd see the remaining 4 members and the cyborg en route to Galactus' location, where they would once again arrive and plan out their attack. The Thing would believe he got the upper hand on Superman, where he'd sneak up behind the Herald, who of course knew he was there, and backhanded the dude so hard that he sent him flying directly into Galactus' ship. Not about to let the blood of millions of innocents be on his hands, Superman then rebelled against his master, vowing he would obey him no longer. Not surprised he was betrayed by yet another Herald, Galactus then bombarded Kal-El with a powerful wave of energy, sending him to the Earth. As the Fantastic Four then attempted to battle the god, we'd see just how hard Superman had hit Thing as we witness him come flying directly into the container Galactus had him in, which was a force so powerful that it even cracked Reed's seemingly uncrackable prison. Now able to escape, Reed deduced that this was too much of a coincidence. Superman knew exactly what he was doing by sending Thing through here. Now Reed was free and would be able to use his brilliant mind to aid his family. As Johnny and Sue battled Galactus, their options would quickly be running out as he was only growing stronger, and Superman was still down for the count. While Human Torch would give everything he had against Galactus, he'd then ask an important question that I'm sure most of us probably asked like 5 minutes ago. Just, where the heck did the cyborg go? We'd see, of course, this sniveling little opportunist was up to no good as always, where he'd then make his way through Galactus' central computer. He'd be in awe of this tech and claim that if he were to use his powers to merge with it, he'd be nearly as powerful as Galactus himself. He would soon find an access hatch where he'd prepare to upload himself, but before he could R2-D2 his way to godhood, the man was quickly intercepted by Reed, where the pair would engage. Henshaw would call out Richard's foolishness, saying he was no match for him, where the guy would beg to differ, as he'd pull out a pulse disruptor he just created like 5 seconds ago, which caused a painful wave of electricity to course through the man's body. While badly weakened from this, it would not be enough to stop the Cyborg Superman, who then quickly recovered and shot Reed right through the stomach, and told him that when he attacks him, it better be enough to kill him. Otherwise, he would ensure that Mr. Fantastic would die a slow and painful death. Calling Reed a pathetic loser, Henshaw then felt a slight tap on his shoulder, where a voice then told him that he had been waiting to say this all day. This, of course, would be the voice of Ben Grimm, shouting his infamous, "It's clobbering time," where he then punched the cyborg so hard that it would send him flying through the ceiling. God, that was so satisfying. Thing may be an orange rock man, but he is Black Air Force One energy 24/7. We would then see the badly wounded Superman still racked with pain after Galactus' attack, believing that he may even die from this. However, something soon caught the man's eye. It was Franklin Richards' Superman figure he gave to his mom prior to the trip, where he made her promise that they would all come back safe. This figure, despite being a child's plaything, was a reminder of the man he once was, the hope that he stood for. Climbing to his feet, we'd see the pain-glowing Superman slowly approach the doll, inching closer and closer to the Man of Tomorrow. We would then witness the Fantastic Four finally be reunited at last, where they'd admit they had quite a bit of work to do, where a voice would then ask them if there was room for one more. This, of course, would be the freshly revived and recovered Superman who allied with these Avengers. Galactus may have destroyed his world of Krypton long ago, but he was not about to let another planet die on his watch. Galactus would then prepare for dinner time once more, where he'd go to conjoin the ignition devices that would allow him to harvest the planet's energy. However, something was wrong. The plates were not joining. This would be the work of Sue Storm, who inserted a barrier between them, where Thing then tipped the literal earth beneath the being's feet, causing him to lose his balance. This then gave Reed and Superman the chance they needed to get into Galactus' lab, where they then worked together to rewire the god's tech, so that way instead of drawing power from the planet was now drawing power from Galactus, essentially draining his life force. Completely shocked that mere humans were capable of such a feat, the god would easily be able to undo their work with a plot-convenient backup trigger, which was promptly melted by Superman. Confronting his former master, Clark then gave Galactus an ultimatum. He could either leave this planet and its sector right now, or he could stay here and be drained of his energy until he died. The stubborn Planet Eater would argue back, saying that he bargained with no one, where Superman told him that he did not have many options left. He made him swear to only feed on deserted planets from here on out, otherwise he and the Four would be back to end him. Actually moved by the Kryptonians' words, Galactus adhered to this agreement, where the heroes then ended the energy transference. This planet and its citizens were officially saved. As Reed would cut off the power, Superman would tell the man Galactus still needed to pay for Krypton's destruction. However, it is here that we make a shocking discovery. While it was initially believed that Galactus did consume Krypton, he tells them that the planet was already destroyed prior to his arrival, where Superman of course thought he was lying, as the crystal containing the message from his father Jor-El had explained otherwise. We would see who really was behind this though, where Ben Grimm would bring out the badly beaten Cyborg Superman, who revealed that it was he who had engineered the crystal with a phony message from Kal-El's father, all in an attempt to lure Superman and the Four to Galactus so he could get access to the dude's tech. Cyborg Superman has always been a grade A rage baiter, and I honestly can't even hate him for it. Dude's basically evil for the love of the game and just likes messing with people. Clark would then tell Henshaw he was sickened by him, where he then simped his way back to Galactus once more. He'd plead with him, saying that he should become his next herald and wished to be blessed with the power cosmic. He would ask the god to give him perfection and what he deserved, which honestly wasn't exactly the wisest choice of words, for Galactus gave him just that and melted the man down into basically a small metal credit card, which Reed looked upon in fascination, saying that it indeed was a flawless alloy condensed into a form of simple perfection without flaw of consciousness, which honestly sounds a lot like the Bacon King from Burger King. Flawless and perfect. Seeing that the danger had now passed, the heroes then decided that the only thing left to do was return home. Things would then be taken to the young Franklin Richards as he would race through the halls of the Fantastic Four building. Someone was in the hangar. Just who could it be? His hopeful heart would then be put at ease, as it of course was his family, who had returned home just as they promised they would. The boy would also once more be greeted by Superman, who returned the toy to him. He would thank the child, saying that he was more help than he could ever have known in this mission, and wished to give him a gift of thanks. This gift would be his iconic red cape, where Franklin and the Four would watch in awe as they would say farewell to the Man of Steel as he would fly off into the sunset.